Hi, Rolf Kurtajka here with Brightwood Real Estate Education. Let's talk briefly about stigmatized properties. Before I get into the content here, I want to pose a scenario to you. What if you've got a seller who overprices the property, is asking way too much? The property is priced well above what similar competitive properties are going for. What's going to happen to that property? Is it going to sell right away if it's overpriced, or might it linger on the market longer than the others? I think that's right. It'll linger, and there might be several price reductions. Nothing necessarily wrong with that, but now let's say a buyer comes into the marketplace and looks for properties available in that area, and they notice that this particular property's been on the market a long time and it's had gone through several price reductions. What might be the stigma that comes into that buyer's mind? That's right. There might be something wrong with it. There must be something wrong with it. Why isn't it sold in 6-8 months? Everything else sells in 2-3 months. Must be something wrong with it. Not that there is, but we created a stigma by overpricing the property. That's not going to be, that kind of stigma, overpricing, is not going to be what this discussion is about. This discussion is about properties where usually something bad or tragic has happened, and what are the disclosure requirements around that issue. So these stigmatized properties are properties that had something happen that creates a psychological impact. And if neighbors are aware of it, or if buyers are aware of it, it might be something that gives them pause. So stigmatized properties are those properties that may be deemed undesirable because something occurred there. And it's usually something tragic or bad, such as a suicide, natural death, criminal activity, or perceived paranormal activity, or the presence of adult group homes, or anything like that, that some people, if they knew about it, they might object to it. So you have to check with your state laws. State laws will determine whether issues such as these may have to be disclosed. So what do I want you to know for the exam? I want you to know the definition of a stigmatized property. Something occurred there that some people might deem undesirable. I might not want to buy that property if there was something like a suicide or a natural death or criminal activity, paranormal activity, something like that happened there. Now, state laws will determine whether or not those issues have to be disclosed. I'm in Minnesota. Suicide, natural death, perceived paranormal activity, and some other things do not have to be disclosed. But in some states, I believe California, requires the disclosure of a natural death. So it just varies from state to state. That's what you need to know for the exam. However, in practice, in your professional practice, here's what could happen. One of the instructors I work with, they had a listing, property sold, and tragically, within a few months of the sale, there was a suicide that occurred in the property. Tragic situation. The person who was still living in the property didn't want to live there anymore with this memory, put the property back on the market. So the instructor, or my friend, the agent, they called that same person back to market the property. And even though we know that suicide in my state doesn't have to be disclosed, the agent was smart enough to work with the seller and say, listen, the property was on the market within the last 6 months, and now you're putting it on the market again. People are going to ask, why is the property back on the market? Now, as an agent, I can't take it upon myself to disclose that, you know what, there was a suicide here. But if the seller gives me permission to do so, and why would they do that? Well, they might do it because they know people are going to ask the question. The seller does not have to disclose if it's covered under a stigmatized property law, but they might want to. Not that they always will, but they might want to. So sometimes in practice, the agent might have a conversation that says, what if the question comes up? How should I answer the question? This would be an area where you might involve your broker as well if you're just getting your license as a real estate salesperson. All right, back to test world. Definition of a stigmatized property. Something happened there that might have a psychological impact. It might be undesirable because something occurred there. I gave a list of examples. The key thing here, the second key point, is state laws will determine if or when those issues have to be disclosed.